Hello everyone, I'm Professor Josh Hamlet, Chair of the Film Studies Department at Kalamazoo College in Michigan, and I'm here today with an exclusive interview with the Miami-based filmmaker Maxwell Dickinson.
Hey Josh, happy to be here.
This is your house, correct?
Yeah, man. Yeah, this is my house.
Okay, I was just checking. So now you were a fairly prolific filmmaker for a while, but you slowed down recently. Why is that?
Oh, we're starting off in the nadir of my career. Okay. Well, you know, it takes a lot of work to make a film, and when you have no equipment and no money and, quite frankly, no talent, you know, I mean, the whole thing becomes very disillusioning.
Some of that self-deprecating charm you're so famous for.
I guess. I mean, you've seen the product, though. You know, I mean, some of those mistakes can't just be artistic decisions. But, you know, like my idol Kevin Smith says, you know, I care about the dialogue. The visuals are secondary.
Well, let's move on from that strange statement. Let's talk about some of your most frequent collaborators, namely George Diaz and Guillermo Subio, who star in dual roles in the strange case of the disappearance of local legend and Vivant Aleksander Codswottle. What's up with them?
Yeah, well, they're high school buddies of mine who agreed to help me out and acting in this. I wanted to have 6 actors in this. I did not want them to have to double up, but you know, I had to make do with what we had, and I think they do an admirable job. I wouldn't say any of them have any great gift for acting, but you know, I think they made do with what we have, and I wouldn't say I have any great gift for acting either, so.
Certainly.
Oh, wait a second, is this going to be public?
Possibly.
Okay, well, if it is, can you cut that? Because George has some connections with the Yakuza, and I'm kind of scared what they could do to me if this gets out.
Well, speaking of crime, let's talk about the most interesting figure in the Dickinson entourage, Kirk Poland.
Oh, God. I mean, do we really have to talk about him?
Well, you can't deny the mystique. I mean, he's the Klaus Kinski to your Werner Herzog.
Yeah, but the only thing we had in common was that we hated one another. I mean, Poland had none of Kinski's undeniable verve that arguably made up for at least some of his, you know, behavior.
How did you meet?
Well, since I don't think you're gonna let me go if I don't tell you, sure. I was driving downtown when, on a street corner, I saw this strange man dressed in all black. He was standing on a street corner, he was just ranting and raving, and he had these signs proclaiming that the end was nigh. I was entranced. I mean, I pulled over and watched. That's how enthralled I was.
And that was Kirk Poland?
No, that was just some local hobo. Kirk Poland rear-ended me a few minutes later.
Thus began the root of your acrimonious relationship.
I guess, you know, we got into an argument, and I agreed not to call the cops if he was willing to work in a film I was doing pro bono. I mean, I didn't want to cast him, I should say, because of that stupid accent of his. It just made it impossible to understand what he was saying.
Then why did you?
Well, he pulled out a Bowie knife to try to intimidate me, but as he was swinging it around, he cut his hand so badly that he just sort of collapsed to the ground and started blubbering incredibly loudly. And it was so awkward that I agreed if he would just let me drive off and leave. And I gave him some bandages that I had in my car.
And the rest is history.
A miserable history, but yes, we worked on 5 films together, and in each one of those films, one of the cast members offered to kill him for me.
Jesus, I mean, why would they want to kill him?
Hey, if you met him, I mean, you'd want to kill him too. Yeah, for starters, he was doing all these tricks with these knives he'd had, and he was not good at any of them, and they would always end with him hurting himself, and then we'd have to stop shooting for several days so he could recover. You know, and then he had all these bizarre opinions that I don't even want to get into, that he would just spout off without rhyme or reason, you know, in the middle of takes usually.
Like the infamous one in The Strange Case.
And in fact, the reason I kept that in the film is because I wanted to show it to him, and I could be like, look, moron, this is what you look like when you go off on these rants, okay? You look like a child.
Did it work?
Yes and no. Later that night, after I showed it to him, he showed up to my house and forced me into a sumo wrestle. Luckily, I was able to pin him. I mean, I have an absurdly low center of gravity. It is impossible to pin me. And then he never worked with me again. So I took the whole situation as a win.
Well, he's resurfaced recently with a career in adult film, right?
Okay, look, I need to clarify that it is not pornography. Nobody would pay money to see Kirk Poland nude. Look at the man. No, what they are contemporary silent films. He formed this collective that believed that sound diluted the cinematic experience. They were adult films because they were literally aimed at very, very old adults who remember watching silent films as a child.
Do they have a big audience?
I mean, considering how his target audience is almost all dead, I'm going to say no. But I mean, Norman Lear was apparently a fan, so I guess that's something.
Well, what were they called?
Now You Hear Me, Now You Don't, which doesn't make any sense because they're completely silent films. They don't start in sound, then move to silent. And also, who would want to hear Kirk Poland's voice? I mean, they're doing us a favor by muting him.
I mean, have you seen any of them?
I wish I hadn't, because they are god-awful. You ever see My Dinner with Andre? Imagine that, but you have to read their aimless philosophizing about avant-garde theater off of title cards. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what silent film are. They are just, his films are just long reams of dialogue, but again, they're silent. It doesn't make any sense.
What do you say to people who think you look alike?
We don't look anything alike. I don't know why everybody says that. Put us two of us aside, and we look as different as Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger. There are no similarities. I don't get that.
Well, that's about all the time we have, folks.
What? This interview's been barely, 5 minutes.
Well, that's all the time I have funding for. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for my upcoming book on Maxwell Dickinson, the first ever comprehensive study, entitled The Boredom of Dreams, on filmmaking and failure in Miami, Florida. Until next time, folks, I've been Josh Hamlet. Take care.
Whatever, man. I'm Maxwell. Bye.